The lecture hall of the Galactic Military Academy buzzed with the typical pre-class chatter of 100 different species. Crystal and Vexter clicked their mandibles in conversation, while the gaseous Nephori floated in their containment suits, their voices like wind chimes. Muscular Kryn warriors compared combat scars, and the elegant Silurians preened their iridescent feathers. In the back row, Cadet Maya Chin sat alone, as she had for the past 3 months. She'd learned quickly that being the first human admitted to the academy came with a peculiar form of isolation. Not quite hostility. The galaxy had rules about such things, but rather a dismissive curiosity, as if she were an exotic pet someone had brought to class. Her species had only achieved faster-than-light travel 2 years ago, making them the galactic equivalent of toddlers playing with plasma cutters. Maya absently twisted the leather bracelet on her wrist, a simple thing woven by her younger brother before she'd left Earth. It bore a small metal charm, a circular emblem with a blue sphere cradled by 2 hands, surrounded by stars. A child's interpretation of humanity's first contact with the wider universe. Still wearing that primitive trinket, the voice belonged to Zexther, a Kryn who seemed to have made antagonizing Maya his personal mission. He loomed over her desk, all 7 feet of scaled muscle and misplaced superiority. Shouldn't you have left such barbaric mementos behind when you joined civilization? Several nearby cadets turned to watch. They always did. Maya met his gaze evenly. It's a reminder of home. I'm sure even Kryn have those. The Kryn have no need for sentimental weaknesses, Zexther sneered. He reached down and flicked the bracelet with a clawed finger. What does this laughable symbol even represent? Your species' delusions of importance. It represents hope, Maya said quietly. This drew actual laughter from the small crowd that had gathered. A Vexter clicked something that the universal translator rendered as, "How charmingly naive. Hope is the consolation of species that lack actual strength." Attention! The command cut through the mockery like a blade. Instructor Vorthrax entered the hall, and 200 cadets immediately stood at attention. The Kryn commander was a legend, a veteran of the Dissolution Wars, the Hive conflicts, and a dozen other campaigns that had shaped galactic history. His scales bore the pale scars of plasma burns and void exposure, and his eyes held the weight of centuries. He was, by all accounts, utterly unshakable. "Practical combat scenarios today," Vorthrax announced, his voice carrying effortlessly through the hall. "You will be divided into—" He stopped mid-sentence. His gaze had swept across the cadets and locked onto something. Maya felt her stomach tighten as she realized he was staring directly at her wrist, at her bracelet. The silence that followed was deafening. Instructor Vorthrax's expression, usually carefully controlled, had gone completely blank. Not angry, not confused, but utterly, profoundly still. As if he'd seen a ghost materialize in the middle of his classroom. "Clear the hall," he said quietly. No one moved, uncertain they'd heard correctly. "Clear the hall." The roar was so sudden, so violent, that cadets scattered like startled birds. Within 30 seconds, the lecture hall was empty except for Maya and the instructor. Maya stood frozen at her desk, her heart hammering. Vorthrax approached slowly, each footstep deliberate. When he was close enough, he gestured to her wrist. "Where did you get that?" His voice was barely above a whisper. My brother made it for me, sir, before I left Earth." "The symbol, where did that symbol come from?" Maya looked down at the charm, confused. "It's just something he designed. He's 12. He likes art and—" "Show me your database access," Vorthrax interrupted. "Now." With trembling fingers, Maya pulled up her datapad and opened her files. Vorthrax snatched it from her hands and began scrolling through with increasing urgency, his claws clicking against the screen. His breathing had changed, becoming shallow and rapid. "You don't know," he said finally, looking up at her. "By the void, you actually don't know." "Don't know what, sir?" Vorthrax was silent for a long moment. Then he touched a control on his wristcom. Cancel all my classes for today. Seal this hall. Priority authorization Vorthrax 7 Crimson. The doors hissed shut, and privacy shields activated with a low hum. Sit down, Cadet Chen, Vorthrax said, his voice strange. I need to tell you a story that is classified at the highest levels of galactic security, a story that most species have deliberately forgotten, and a story that apparently your species never knew to begin with. Maya sat, her mind racing. Vorthrax pulled up a holographic display, and ancient star charts materialized in the air between them. 73,000 years ago, the galaxy was very different. There were the precursors, beings of immense power and knowledge who seeded life across countless worlds. When they vanished, they left behind their technology, their knowledge, and a warning. The star chart zoomed in on a particular system, one Maya didn't recognize. They warned of the Devourers, Vorthrax continued. Entities from the spaces between spaces, beings that existed to consume, not just matter or energy, but meaning itself. They fed on civilizations, on potential, on the very possibility of existence. The hologram shifted, showing something that made Maya's skin crawl, dark, writhing shapes that seemed to absorb light itself. The precursors fought them to a standstill and erected barriers, great walls in the fabric of reality itself. But they knew the walls would weaken over time, so they created insurance. Another image appeared. Maya gasped. It was her symbol, identical down to the smallest detail, the sphere, the hands, the stars. They called them the Sleepers, Vorthrax said. 13 worlds scattered across the galaxy, seeded with life that carried a specific genetic marker, a trigger. These worlds were isolated, hidden behind spatial anomalies and stellar phenomena, cut off from the galactic community. The inhabitants would develop naturally, would evolve their own cultures and technologies, completely unaware of their purpose. Purpose? Maya's voice cracked. When the barriers began to fail, when the Devourers began to seep through, the Sleepers would awaken, not metaphorically, literally. The genetic marker would activate, would transform those who carried it into something more, into weapons capable of fighting what normal matter and energy could not touch. Vorthrax's eyes bore into her. Earth is one of the 13 sleeper worlds. Humanity carries the marker. Maya felt the lecture hall spinning around her. That's insane. We're just what? Just humans. Vorthrax laughed bitterly. Do you know what first contact was really like from our perspective? Your scientists detected the survey ship, disabled it with a primitive nuclear weapon modified to disrupt our shields, a trick that should have been impossible, and then negotiated first contact with their fingers on a doomsday device. Your species went from discovering fire to splitting atoms in the blink of an evolutionary eye. You developed faster-than-light travel not through our technology, but by stealing fragments of precursor mathematics from a derelict and somehow making them work. He gestured at her bracelet. And now you wear their symbol, designed by a child who has never seen the original, never had access to the classified archives, never even knew it existed. The genetic memory is beginning to express itself. I don't feel like a weapon, Maya whispered. The barriers are holding for now. Vorthrax closed the hologram. But 16 months ago, we detected the first microbreach. The Council knows. That's why humanity was fast-tracked for galactic membership. That's why you're here, why human cadets are being rushed through military training across a dozen academies. We're being prepared. Yes, Vorthrax sat heavily on the edge of a desk, and I'm one of the few instructors who knows the full truth. I fought in the last Devourer incursion, 73,000 years ago. Maya stared at him. You can't be. Kryn, don't age the way you understand it. I was placed in stasis between crises, awakened only when needed. His voice carried the weight of eons. I remember the precursor's final message. I remember the symbol they burned into our minds before they died holding the line. The symbol that meant hope, yes, but also resurrection. The promise that even in extinction, they had ensured the fight would continue. He pointed at her bracelet. That symbol has haunted my nightmares for 73 millennia, and now it appears on a child's craft project. The silence stretched between them. Finally, Maya spoke. What happens now? Now I train you properly. Vorthrax stood, and something ancient and terrible moved behind his eyes. Not as a cadet to humor the newest species in the galaxy, but as what you actually are, a sleeper beginning to wake. And I pray to every god that's ever been forgotten that we have enough time. He turned to leave, then paused. Your brother, the one who made that bracelet, how many other humans are creating things they shouldn't know, things that feel familiar but aren't from any human culture. Maya thought about the strange dreams she'd been having, dreams of geometries that shouldn't exist and symbols she couldn't quite remember upon waking. She thought about the news reports from Earth about the surge in intuitive mathematics among children, about the artists creating works in styles that matched nothing in human history. A lot, she said quietly. There are a lot of us. Vorthrax nodded slowly. Then it's beginning, the awakening. He looked at her one last time, and she saw something she never expected to see in the ancient warrior's eyes: fear. The galaxy mocked humanity for its weakness, its primitive nature, its laughable entry onto the galactic stage. They didn't understand that you weren't meant to be strong yet. That strength comes later when it's needed. When the Devourers return. Yes. He opened the door and the sounds of the academy rushed back in. Get some rest, Cadet Chen. Starting tomorrow, your real training begins. And for everyone's sake, I hope the precursors knew what they were doing when they created your species. As Maya left the lecture hall, she noticed the other cadets watching her with new uncertainty. Word had spread that Instructor Vorthrax, the unshakable, the legendary, had cleared an entire hall for a human. The mockery was gone, replaced by something else. Wariness. Maya touched her bracelet, feeling the metal warm against her skin. Somewhere in the back of her mind, in a place that felt both ancient and achingly new, something was indeed beginning to wake. She could feel it now that she knew to look. A vast potential, a purpose encoded into her very DNA. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's hope. But hope, Maya was beginning to understand, was never about naivety or weakness. Hope was the promise that even when the darkness returned, when the ancient horrors came crawling back through the cracks in reality, there would be someone waiting. Someone who had been prepared for that very moment across eons. Someone who had been sleeping, but was sleeping no longer. She smiled grimly and headed to the training grounds. If she was going to be a weapon forged by extinct gods to fight incomprehensible horrors, she might as well be ready. After all, humanity had always been good at one thing, proving everyone else wrong. And this time, the entire galaxy was counting on it. End.